Billionaire CEO comforts a crying child at a wedding, freezes when the mother appears. Get away from my daughter. The words sliced through the evening air like a blade through silk. Thatcher Keene, the man whose signature had closed deals worth more than the GDP of small nations, the billionaire whose name was whispered with reverence in every boardroom from Manhattan to Tokyo, stood completely paralyzed. His feet refused to move. His lungs forgot how to breathe. Because standing before him, her eyes blazing with a fire he remembered from another lifetime, was the only woman who had ever made him feel like a beggar despite all his billions. Serafina. Her name escaped his lips like a prayer he had forgotten he knew. Like a wound that had never quite healed, suddenly tearing open again. The little girl tugged at his jacket sleeve, her innocent voice cutting through the suffocating tension. "Mommy, why are you angry? This man is nice. He gave me his special napkin and he said, 'We are both sad, but that is okay.'" Serafina's gaze dropped to her daughter, then back to Thatcher. The color drained from her face as something flickered in her eyes. Something that looked like terror. "Winslow, baby, come here right now." But the child did not move. Instead, she looked up at Thatcher with those eyes, those unmistakable hazel eyes flecked with gold, the same eyes that stared back at him every morning in the mirror, the same eyes his mother had, the same eyes that had been passed down through 3 generations of keen men. And in that moment, the world stopped spinning. 5 years. She was 5 years old, and 5 years ago, the only woman Thatcher Keene had ever loved had vanished from his life without a trace. The math was devastating in its simplicity. "She is mine." The words came out as barely a whisper. "Is she not, Serafina?" "She is my daughter." Serafina's jaw tightened, her hands trembled at her sides, but she said nothing. Absolutely nothing. And her silence screamed louder than any words ever could. Welcome to Cedar Drama, where stories come alive and hearts connect in ways you never expected. I want to take a moment to speak directly to you. Yes, you, the one watching right now. Whether you found this video by chance or you have been with us from the beginning, I need you to know something. These stories are crafted specifically for souls like yours, souls that understand the depth of human emotion, the complexity of love, and the redemptive power of second chances. To my incredible subscribers, you are not just viewers, you are family. Your comments, your shares, your presence here means everything. And to those who are new, I have a feeling you were meant to find this story today. Now, most people will scroll past this video. Most people do not have the patience for stories that demand something from them emotionally. But something tells me you are different. Something tells me you understand that the best stories are the ones that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. If that sounds like you, do me a small favor. Tap that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Not because I am asking, but because you deserve to be part of something meaningful. You deserve stories that make you feel alive. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Let us discover how a billionaire CEO ended up on his knees in a rose garden, begging for a second chance he did not deserve. 4 hours earlier, the Belmont estate glittered like something out of a fairy tale that Thatcher Keene had stopped believing in years ago. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across 500 guests dressed in their finest. Champagne flowed like water. A jazz quartet played songs about love and forever and all the things that Thatcher had learned were beautiful lies. He adjusted his Brioni jacket for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. The fabric cost more than most people earned in a month, but it felt like a straitjacket tonight. Everything felt suffocating. The laughter, the dancing couples, the overwhelming joy that seemed to pulse through the air like electricity. Thatcher Keene did not belong here. He belonged in boardrooms where emotions were liabilities. He belonged in negotiations where vulnerability was weakness. He had built his empire on the principle that feelings were obstacles to be overcome, not indulged. And yet here he was, at his college roommate's wedding, surrounded by the very thing he had spent years running from. Love. The word tasted foreign in his mind, like a language he had once spoken fluently but had forgotten somewhere along the way. Thatcher, you actually came. Meridian Cross appeared beside him, slightly flushed from dancing, radiating the kind of happiness that made Thatcher's chest constrict painfully. Meridian was wearing a grin that seemed permanently etched on his face, the grin of a man who had found what he was looking for. I said I would come. Thatcher kept his voice neutral, his expression carefully blank. The same mask he wore in every meeting, every interview, every moment of his public life. I know, but saying and doing are different things with you. Meridian clapped him on the shoulder. When was the last time you did something that was not on your calendar 3 months in advance? Thatcher almost smiled. Almost. I am here, am I not? Physically, yes. But that look in your eyes tells me you have already calculated exactly how long you need to stay before you can politely escape. 37 more minutes. Meridian laughed, but there was something beneath it. Something that looked like concern. You know, there was a time when you would have been the first one on that dance floor, the first one making everyone laugh, the first one believing in all of this. People change. Do they? Or do they just forget who they were? The question hit closer than Meridian probably intended. Thatcher looked away, his gaze drifting across the crowd without really seeing any of it. His mind was somewhere else. Somewhen else. 6 years in the past, in a tiny apartment that smelled like coffee and lavender, where a woman with hazel eyes had made him believe that love was not just possible but inevitable. That was before. Before his father's ultimatum. Before the choice that had haunted him every night since. Before he had learned that you could have everything the world said mattered and still feel like you were dying inside. Thatcher. Meridian's voice pulled him back. The groom was studying him with the kind of scrutiny that only old friends could get away with. You should try living again. Real living, not just existing. I am saying this as someone who cares about you. Thatcher's jaw tightened. I appreciate the concern, but I am fine. No. You are successful. There is a difference. Before Thatcher could respond, Meridian's bride appeared, pulling her new husband toward the dance floor for another spin. Meridian shot Thatcher one last meaningful look before disappearing into the crowd, leaving him alone with words that refused to stop echoing. Successful but not fine. The assessment was uncomfortably accurate. Thatcher had $14 billion. He had properties on 4 continents. He had the respect of world leaders and the fear of competitors. Forbes had featured him on their cover twice. Business magazines called him a genius, a visionary, the architect of modern innovation. But at 3 in the morning, when the silence in his penthouse became unbearable, none of that mattered. At 3 in the morning, he was just a man who had traded love for legacy and discovered too late that he had chosen wrong. The memory tried to surface again. Serafina's face the last time he had seen her, the confusion in her eyes when he had not come home. The messages he had never answered because he was too much of a coward to explain why he was walking away. Thatcher pushed it down. He had become an expert at pushing things down, compartmentalizing emotions the way he compartmentalized business units, filing them away in mental folders labeled irrelevant and counterproductive. But tonight, surrounded by so much joy, the folders felt thin, the walls felt fragile. Everything felt like it was one wrong word away from crumbling. He needed air. Thatcher excused himself from a conversation he had not really been part of and made his way toward the garden terrace. The crowd parted for him without him having to ask. People always moved for Thatcher Keene, some out of respect, some out of fear, most out of a desperate hope that he might remember their face when it mattered. The garden was quieter. Fairy lights strung through ancient oak trees created a canopy of soft gold above the stone pathways. The air smelled like roses and money and the kind of perfection that only extreme wealth could buy. Thatcher loosened his tie and breathed deeply for the first time all evening. This was better. This was manageable. Out here, away from the laughter and the dancing and the constant reminder of everything he had sacrificed, he could almost pretend he was at peace. That is when he heard it. A small sound, almost lost beneath the distant music from the reception, but unmistakable once you noticed it. A child crying. Not the demanding wail of a tantrum, something softer, sadder. The kind of crying that spoke of genuine distress rather than manipulation. The kind of crying that came from someone who had given up hoping anyone would come. Thatcher followed the sound around a hedge of perfectly trimmed roses until he found her. A little girl sat alone on a stone bench near the garden fountain. She could not have been more than 5 years old. Her flower girl dress, white with delicate lace trim, was stained with grass at the hem. Her honey blonde hair had escaped its careful braids, curling wildly around her tear-streaked face. In her small hands, she clutched a wilted flower that looked like it had been through a war. She was the picture of childhood despair, and something in Thatcher's chest cracked. He should find her parents. He should flag down a staff member. He should do anything except approach this child himself because he knew nothing about children, nothing about comfort, nothing about being soft when the world had taught him to be hard. But her crying continued, and guest after guest walked by without noticing, too caught up in their own celebrations to see a small person in pain. Thatcher found himself moving before his brain could object. He approached slowly, carefully, the way one might approach something precious and fragile. When he reached the bench, he crouched down so he was at her level, his expensive suit forgotten as his knees touched the damp pavement. "Hey there." His voice came out gentler than he had used in years, maybe decades, a voice he had not known he still possessed. The little girl looked up at him with those eyes, hazel, flecked with gold, framed by impossibly long lashes clumped together with tears. For a moment, Thatcher forgot how to breathe. Those eyes were familiar in a way that made his heart stutter. "Are you okay?" The girl sniffled, studying him with the unguarded curiosity only children possess. "I cannot find my mommy. And I ripped my dress, and my flower died. And everyone is dancing but nobody saw me." Each word was punctuated by a small sob that seemed to break something further inside Thatcher's chest. He pulled out his pocket square, silk, monogrammed, absurdly expensive, and offered it to her. "Here, for the tears. I promise it is very good at soaking up sad things." The girl took it carefully, her small fingers brushing his. "Thank you, mister. It is very fancy. It is just a napkin." "What is your name?" "Winslow. But mommy calls me Winnie sometimes. Only when I am being good, though." Despite himself, Thatcher almost smiled. "That is a beautiful name, Winslow." "I am Thatcher. That is a funny name." Now he did smile, just barely. "I suppose it is." Winslow wiped her eyes with his pocket square, leaving mascara streaks on the silk that would have made his dry cleaner weep. Her sobs quieted slightly as she studied him with renewed interest. "Are you a prince?" "You look like a prince from my storybook, but older." "Not a prince. Just someone who knows what it feels like to be lost at a party." "You get lost too?" "More than you would believe." The girl considered this with the gravity only children can muster. "My mommy says being lost is scary, but it is okay because someone will always find you if you wait." "Your mommy sounds very smart." "She is the smartest. She went to a big school, and now she helps people who are in trouble." Thatcher felt a pang of something he could not name. "What kind of trouble?" "The law kind. She wears fancy clothes and talks in a big room with a judge." "A lawyer." The girl's mother was a lawyer. Something tugged at the edges of Thatcher's memory, but he pushed it aside. There were thousands of female lawyers in the world. Millions, probably. "Can I tell you a secret, Winslow?" The girl nodded eagerly, her tears almost forgotten. "When I was about your age, I got lost at my aunt's birthday party. I wandered into the wrong room and accidentally locked myself in a coat closet for 2 hours." Winslow's eyes went wide. "Did you cry?" "So much. I thought I would never be found. But eventually, someone heard me and opened the door, and everything was okay." "Did you get cake after?" "2 pieces." A small giggle escaped her, surprising them both. "That is good. Cake makes everything better." "It really does." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence. Thatcher could not remember the last time silence had felt comfortable with another person. In his world, silence was a weapon, a negotiation tactic, something to be filled with strategy and calculation. But here, with this small girl and her ruined flower, silence was just silence, simple and clean. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Thatcher?" "Of course." Winslow picked at the lace of her dress, suddenly shy. "Do you have a daddy?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "I did. Once. He died a few years ago." "Oh." The girl's face crumpled with genuine sympathy. "Thank you. I do not have a daddy either." Now Thatcher's heart was doing something strange, contracting in ways it had not in years. "You do not?" Winslow shook her head. "Mommy says he went away before I was born. She says sometimes people leave even when they love you because they are scared." but I do not understand how someone can be scared and still leave." Out of the mouths of babes, Thatcher swallowed hard, suddenly unable to meet the child's eyes. "Sometimes grown-ups are very stupid about love. Did you ever leave someone because you were scared?" The question was innocent, uncomplicated, asked with the simple curiosity of a child who did not understand why adults made everything so complicated. But for Thatcher, it was a knife sliding between his ribs. "Yes," he heard himself say. "I did. And I regret it every single day." "Did you say sorry?" "No. I was too afraid they would not forgive me." Mommy says sorry is magic. She says even when you do something really bad, saying sorry with your whole heart can fix almost anything. Thatcher looked at this small girl, this unexpected philosopher in a grass-stained dress, and felt something shift inside him. Something that had been locked away for so long he had forgotten it was there. "Your mommy is very wise. I know. She is the best mommy in the whole world." Winslow paused, tilting her head in a way that seemed oddly familiar. "You look sad, Mr. Thatcher, behind your eyes, like you are missing someone too." The observation was startling in its accuracy. This 5-year-old had seen through him in minutes when business rivals failed to read him after years of negotiations. I am missing someone very much. Maybe you can find them, like how you found me." Before Thatcher could respond, a voice cut through the garden like a cry from another world. "Winslow? Winslow, where are you? Now, I need to pause here and ask you something. We have all been in moments where everything is about to change, where the next few seconds will determine everything that follows. What would you do if you were Thatcher? If you had spent 5 years running from the biggest mistake of your life, and suddenly fate dropped you right back in front of it? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know what you think. And if you are still here watching, I already know something about you. You understand that some stories are worth staying for. This is one of them. That is Mommy." Winslow jumped up from the bench, her face transforming with relief and joy. The tears were forgotten. The dead flower was forgotten. Everything was forgotten except the promise of her mother's presence. "Mommy, I am over here. I am okay." Thatcher rose slowly. His knees protested after crouching for so long, but he barely noticed. His heart was pounding now, hammering against his ribs with an intensity that made no sense. "It is just a mother coming to collect her child," he told himself. "It means nothing." But somewhere deep in his gut, in that primal place where intuition lives, he knew. He knew before she even appeared. The footsteps grew closer, faster, frantic with the particular terror that only parents know. "Winslow, oh, thank God, baby. I have been looking everywhere for you." And then she stepped around the hedge. And time stopped. Seraphina Blackwood, the woman who had haunted his dreams for 5 years. The woman whose absence had left a wound so deep he had built an entire empire trying to fill it. The woman he had left without a word, without an explanation, without the courage to face what he had done. She was even more beautiful than his memories, which he had replayed 1,000 times in the darkness of sleepless nights. Her dark hair was shorter now, swept into an elegant updo that emphasized the architecture of her face. The years had added something to her. Not age, but depth. Strength. The kind of beauty that comes from surviving things that should have broken you. She was wearing a simple blue dress that probably cost a fraction of what any woman at this wedding had spent on their outfit, but she outshone them all. She always had. Seraphina had never needed expensive things to be luminous. She just was. Their eyes met. And everything Thatcher had spent 5 years burying came roaring back to the surface. "Mommy." Winslow ran to her mother, wrapping small arms around Seraphina's legs. "I got lost, but this nice man helped me. His name is Thatcher, and he has a funny name, and he gave me his special napkin because I was crying." Seraphina's body had gone rigid. Her eyes, those hazel eyes that her daughter had inherited, were fixed on Thatcher with an expression that shifted through 10 different emotions in the span of seconds. Shock, disbelief, recognition, fear, anger, pain, and something else. Something that looked like the ghost of love, quickly suppressed. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And when she finally spoke, her voice was cold enough to freeze the summer air. "Get away from my daughter." The words hit Thatcher like a physical blow. Seraphina pulled Winslow behind her, positioning her body between the child and the man. Every line of her posture screamed protection. Mama bear energy that would have destroyed anyone who tried to get past her. Serafina. Her name left his lips before he could stop it. Like a prayer. Like a wound. Like the only word that mattered. Do not. Her voice shook with barely contained emotion. Do not you dare say my name like you have any right to it. Mommy? Winslow's small voice was confused. Why are you scared? He is nice. Go sit on that bench, baby. Right there where I can see you. Mommy needs to talk to this man for a minute. But he is my friend. Winslow. Now. Something in her mother's tone made the child obey without further protest. She walked to the bench, clutching Thatcher's pocket square like a security blanket, her eyes darting between the two adults with growing confusion. And then they were alone. As alone as they could be with a 5-year-old watching from 10 feet away. The silence between them was heavy. Loaded with 5 years of unanswered questions, unspoken pain, and the kind of history that never truly stays buried. You look good. Serafina's voice was carefully neutral now, controlled in a way that told Thatcher she was fighting hard to maintain composure. Success suits you. Do not do that. Do what? Pretend this is normal. Pretend we are old acquaintances making small talk at a wedding. What would you prefer? That I scream at you? That I cry? That I show you exactly how much damage you did when you vanished from my life without a single word of explanation? I would prefer the truth. Whatever that looks like. Serafina laughed, but there was no humor in it. The truth. You want the truth, Thatcher? Here is the truth. I spent 3 days in that apartment waiting for you. 3 days calling your phone until it went straight to voicemail. 3 days wondering if you were dead in a ditch somewhere because I could not imagine any other reason you would not come home. Serafina, I called hospitals. I called the police. I called everyone I could think of because I was convinced something terrible had happened to you. Because the alternative was unthinkable. The alternative was that you had simply left, that you had decided I was not worth the trouble and walked away. It was not like that. Then what was it like? Her voice rose despite herself. Because from where I stood, it looked exactly like that. It looked like the man I loved, the man I had built a life with, the man who had promised me forever just decided one day that forever was too expensive. Thatcher felt each word like a lash. He deserved them. He deserved worse. My father. The words came out strangled. My father gave me an ultimatum. The company, or you. If I chose you, he would destroy everything, disinherit me, blacklist me from the industry, make sure I never worked again. Serafina's expression flickered. For just a moment, something like understanding crossed her face before it hardened again. So you chose the company. I was terrified. I was 29 years old and everything I had worked for was about to disappear. I thought if I could just build something big enough, successful enough, I could come back. I could explain. I could make you understand. You thought I would wait for you? While you built your empire? While you became a billionaire and dated models and graced magazine covers? You thought I would just put my life on hold, hoping you would remember I existed. No. I thought you would move on. I thought you deserved better than someone who could be manipulated like that. Someone who was not strong enough to choose love over fear. Serafina stared at him, and for a moment the mask slipped. Behind the anger, behind the protective fury, he could see the woman he had loved, the woman he had devastated, the woman who had somehow survived him. You know what the worst part was? Her voice cracked slightly. I found out I was pregnant 2 days after you left. The words hit Thatcher like a freight train. Pregnant. 2 days after. His eyes moved to Winslow, sitting on the bench with her ruined flower and his monogrammed pocket square, looking at him with those familiar eyes. His mother's eyes. His eyes. The math he had done earlier suddenly became physical, became real, became devastating. She is mine. It was not a question. Serafina's silence was answer enough. But Thatcher needed to hear it. Needed her to say the words that would change everything. Serafina, is she my daughter? Serafina's jaw tightened, Tears glistened in her eyes, but she blinked them back furiously, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Yes. The word came out like a confession, like a verdict, like the closing of one door and the opening of another. Thatcher felt his knees weaken. The world tilted on its axis. Everything he thought he knew about his life, about his choices, about the price he had paid for success, suddenly rearranged itself into a new and terrible pattern. He had a daughter, a beautiful, brilliant, sad little girl who asked philosophical questions about love and loss. A child who had grown up without him, who had wondered why her daddy left, who had learned to comfort herself when she was lost because the person who should have been there simply was not. I have a daughter. His voice broke on the last word. And I missed all of it. Serafina said nothing. What was there to say? Her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. I missed everything. Yes, you did. Thatcher looked at Winslow again. She had started braiding the dead flower into her hair, creating something beautiful from something ruined. Just like her mother had done. Just like he should have done if he had been brave enough. I need you to know something. Thatcher's voice was barely above a whisper. I need you to know that I have thought about you every single day for 5 years. That I have picked up the phone 1,000 times wanting to call you. That every business deal, every achievement, every empty success has tasted like ashes because you were not there to share it. Pretty words. Serafina's tone was bitter. But words are easy. They cost nothing. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to make this right. I do not know if you can. Let me try. Please, Serafina. Let me try. She studied his face for a long moment, searching for something. Deception, maybe. The old Thatcher who had chosen fear over love. The man who had proven he could not be trusted when it mattered most. Thatcher did not know what she found. He only knew that when she finally spoke again, her voice was softer. Still guarded, still wounded, but softer. She does not know you are her father. She does not even know your name beyond what you told her today. I know. If you are going to be part of her life, it cannot be halfway. It cannot be when your schedule permits or when you feel like playing dad. She deserves more than that. She deserves everything. I know. Do you? Because the Thatcher I knew made a lot of promises he did not keep. The accusation stung because it was true. But Thatcher had spent 5 years living with the consequences of his choices. 5 years learning that all the money in the world could not buy back what really mattered. I am not that man anymore. I do not know who I am yet, but I know I am not him. Mommy? Winslow's voice interrupted them. Her small face was pinched with worry. Are you fighting? I do not like it when people fight. Serafina took a deep breath, visibly collecting herself. No, baby. We are not fighting. We are just talking about grown-up things. Winslow looked at Thatcher, then back at her mother. Can Mr. Thatcher have cake with us? He said cake makes everything better. The request hung in the air. Serafina's eyes met Thatcher's. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever. But something that looked like the very beginning of a possibility. We will see, baby. We will see. And in those words, Thatcher heard something he had not allowed himself to feel in 5 years. Before we continue, I need to say something. If you are still here, still watching, still invested in Thatcher and Serafina's story, then you understand something that most people do not. You understand that real love is not a fairy tale. It is messy and painful and complicated. It requires courage that most people do not have. And sometimes, just sometimes, it offers second chances to those brave enough to take them. Now, most viewers will not make it to the end of this story. They will get distracted or decide it is too long or convince themselves they already know how it ends. But you are different. I can feel it. You are the kind of person who finishes what they start, who believes that the journey matters as much as the destination. So stay with me, because what happens next will change everything. Let us go back. Back to the beginning. Back to when Thatcher Keene was not a billionaire, and Serafina Blackwood was not a single mother, and love was still something they both believed in. 6 years earlier. The coffee shop was called the Midnight Owl, And it was the kind of place that survived on character rather than profit. Mismatched furniture crowded every corner, local art covered walls that had not been painted since the 90s. The espresso machine wheezed like an asthmatic cat, but somehow produced the best lattes in the city. Thatcher had discovered it by accident. A wrong turn during a particularly brutal rainstorm had led him through its doors, soaking wet and desperate for shelter. He had intended to stay 5 minutes. That was 3 months ago. Now he came every Tuesday and Thursday, ordering the same thing each time. Black coffee, no sugar, a blueberry muffin he never actually ate. He told himself it was because the Wi-Fi was reliable and the tables were big enough to spread out his work. But the truth sat 3 tables away, bent over a law textbook thick enough to stop a bullet. Seraphina Blackwood. He did not know her name yet. He only knew that she had the kind of face that made concentrating impossible. High cheekbones and full lips and eyes that caught the light in ways that seemed almost supernatural. She chewed on her pen when she was thinking hard. She talked to herself under her breath when she was memorizing cases. She drank tea, not coffee, and she always added exactly 2 sugars after stirring counterclockwise 3 times. Thatcher had noticed all of this without ever speaking a single word to her. Pathetic, really. He was 28 years old, already making his first million, already being courted by venture capitalists who saw his potential. He had closed deals with executives twice his age. He had stared down hostile boards without flinching, but asking this woman her name felt like the most terrifying thing in the world. You know, if you stare any harder, you might actually set her on fire. Thatcher startled, nearly spilling his coffee. The barista, a middle-aged woman named Doreen, who had zero respect for personal boundaries, was grinning at him with undisguised amusement. I am not staring. Honey, you have been staring for 3 months. Either talk to her or put the poor girl out of her misery. What if she is not interested? What if she is? The question hung in the air, simple but devastating in its implications. Doreen patted his shoulder with maternal condescension. Life is short, handsome. The things we regret most are usually the things we never did. She walked away before Thatcher could respond, leaving him with a truth he could not ignore. He looked at the woman 3 tables away. She was frowning at her textbook now, her pen tapping against the margin in a rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat. Before he could overthink it, before fear could talk him out of it, Thatcher stood up. His legs felt like they belonged to someone else as he crossed the distance between them. His heart was pounding so hard he was convinced she could hear it. Excuse me. She looked up, and those eyes hit him like a physical force. Close up, they were even more extraordinary. Hazel with flecks of gold, framed by lashes that seemed almost theatrical in their fullness. Yes, I just wanted to say that I have been coming to this coffee shop for 3 months, and every single time, I have wanted to introduce myself to you. And every single time, I have convinced myself that it would be weird or unwelcome or some combination of both. But a very wise barista just told me that life is short and the things we regret most are usually the things we never did. So here I am, being weird. Probably unwelcome. But at least I will not regret not trying. He ran out of words and stood there, feeling like the biggest idiot in the history of idiots. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Her expression was unreadable. The silence stretched until Thatcher was convinced he had made a terrible mistake. Then she smiled, and the entire world rearranged itself. I am Seraphina. Thatcher. Well, Thatcher. She closed her textbook and gestured to the empty chair across from her. You are absolutely weird, but you are also the first person in 3 months brave enough to actually talk to me instead of just staring. So I suppose I can give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes turned into 5 hours. 5 hours turned into 5 days. 5 days turned into 5 months of the most exhilarating, terrifying, beautiful experience of Thatcher's life. Seraphina was everything he did not know he needed. She was brilliant and fierce and unafraid to challenge him when he was being ridiculous. She laughed at his jokes, but also at him when he deserved it. She saw through every mask he wore and loved what she found underneath. With her, he was not the rising star entrepreneur, or the son living under his father's impossible expectations. He was just Thatcher, flawed and hopeful and completely, devastatingly in love. They moved in together after 4 months because being apart felt like a waste of the limited time humans had on Earth. Their apartment was tiny and perfect. Her law books mixed with his business plans. Her tea collection invaded his coffee space. Her presence filled every corner of his life until he could not remember what solitude had felt like. "I want forever with you," he told her one night, 3 months before everything fell apart. "I want to wake up next to you when we are 80. I want to argue about whose turn it is to do the dishes for the next 50 years. I want everything, Sarah, everything." She had kissed him with tears in her eyes. "Then let us have it. Let us have everything." But forever, as Thatcher would learn, was more expensive than he could afford. The call from his father came on a Tuesday. "Thatcher, we need to talk. Come to my office." His father, Garrison Keene, was not a man who made requests. He made demands. And when Garrison Keene demanded your presence, you showed up. No exceptions. Thatcher arrived at the Keene Industries headquarters with a knot in his stomach. His father's corner office overlooked the city like a throne room overlooking a kingdom. Everything was deliberate. The positioning of the chairs, the angle of the light, the temperature of the room. Garrison Keene controlled every variable in his environment, including his son. "Sit down." Thatcher sat. "I understand you have been seeing someone. The Blackwood girl." The knot tightened. "How do you know about Serafina?" "I know everything about your life, Thatcher. It is my job to know. And what I know is that this relationship is unacceptable." "Unacceptable?" "Father, I love her." "Love?" Garrison's voice dripped with contempt. "Love is a luxury, son, a distraction. And distractions are dangerous when you are building an empire. I am not building an empire. I am building a life. The same thing. Or it should be, if you had any sense." His father leaned forward, his eyes cold and calculating. "The Blackwood girl has nothing to offer you. No connections, no family wealth, no strategic value. She is a law student from a middle-class background who will drain your resources and dilute your focus. She makes me happy." Happy. Another luxury word. Do you think I was happy when I built this company? Do you think happiness entered into any of my decisions? I did what was necessary. I sacrificed what needed to be sacrificed. And now I am in a position to offer you everything or take everything away. The threat hung in the air like poison. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that you have a choice to make. The company or the girl. I have already drawn up the papers. If you choose her, you are out, disinherited, blacklisted from every boardroom in the country. I have enough influence to make sure you never work in this industry again. But if you choose wisely, if you end this foolish romance and focus on what matters, I will make you my successor. Everything I have built will be yours." Thatcher stared at his father, trying to find something human in those cold eyes. A flicker of paternal love, a hint of understanding. Anything. There was nothing. "You cannot be serious." "I am always serious." Garrison stood, signaling that the conversation was over. "You have 48 hours to decide. I suggest you use them wisely." Thatcher left his father's office in a daze. The city spread out below him, glittering with opportunity and promise. Everything he had ever worked for, everything he had ever dreamed of. It was all within reach. All it would cost was the only person who had ever made him feel whole. He should have told Serafina. He should have gone home that night and laid everything out and let her help him fight. Together, they could have figured something out. Together, they were stronger than any obstacle his father could create. But fear is a powerful thing. And Thatcher had spent his entire life being afraid of his father. Afraid of failure. Afraid of being the disappointment Garrison always implied he was. He spent 47 hours in agony, weighing options, running calculations, trying to find a loophole, an escape, a way to have both. There was none. On the 48th hour, Thatcher Keene made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He did not go home. He could not face Serafina, could not look into those hazel eyes and explain that he was choosing money over love, could not bear to see the disappointment, the betrayal, the moment when she realized he was not the man she thought he was. So he ran. He ran to Tokyo for a business deal that could have waited. He ran to London for meetings that did not matter. He ran to every corner of the world where Serafina's ghost could not follow. And every night, in every hotel room, he told himself he was doing the right thing. She would move on. She would find someone worthy of her. She would have a beautiful life without the burden of a man too weak to choose love over fear. These were lies, of course. The kind of lies we tell ourselves to survive the unbearable weight of our own cowardice. But Thatcher believed them. He had to believe them. Because the alternative was accepting that he had destroyed the only good thing in his life for an empire made of glass and obligation. His father died 2 years later. Heart attack. Fitting. Really. For a man who had never used his. Thatcher inherited everything. The company, the wealth, the legacy of coldness that Garrison had cultivated so carefully. And he discovered something terrible. All of it, every dollar, every asset, every victory, meant nothing. His father had been wrong. Success was not the opposite of love. It was not a substitute for connection. It was just success. Empty and hollow and desperately lonely. For 3 more years, Thatcher built his empire higher and higher, hoping that if he climbed far enough, the view would finally satisfy him. It never did. And now, standing in a rose garden at his friend's wedding, staring at the woman he had abandoned and the daughter he had never known, Thatcher finally understood the true cost of his cowardice. Some prices could never be repaid. Back in the present, the reception had continued around them, oblivious to the earthquake happening in the garden. Thatcher could hear laughter and music, and the clink of champagne glasses, normal sounds from a normal world that no longer applied to him. Serafina was watching him with an expression he could not read. Winslow had gotten bored on the bench and was now making a small pile of flower petals, humming to herself. "I need to know everything." Thatcher's voice was hoarse. "Every moment I missed, every milestone, everything. That is not a small ask." "I know, but I am asking anyway." Serafina was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. Still guarded, but something had shifted. She was born on April 14th at 3:47 inches the morning, 7 pounds 6 ounces. She screamed so loud the nurses said they could hear her 3 floors up. Thatcher closed his eyes, trying to imagine it, trying to fill in the blank space where his memory should have been. She walked at 11 months. Talked at 14. Full sentences by 18 months. The pediatrician said she was one of the most verbally advanced toddlers he had ever seen. "She gets that from you." Serafina almost smiled. "Almost. She gets a lot of things from me, but she has your stubbornness, your way of tilting her head when she is thinking hard, your absolute refusal to admit when she is wrong about something." Thatcher looked at his daughter, really looked at her. And now that he knew, now that the truth was undeniable, he could see himself in every line of her face. In the determination of her posture, in the way she attacked her pile of flower petals like it was a problem to be solved rather than a game to be played. "Does she ask about me?" Serafina's expression flickered. "Sometimes. When she sees other children with their fathers. When Father's Day comes around at school and all the other kids are making cards. What do you tell her?" "The truth. That her father was someone I loved very much, that he had to go away, that it was complicated in ways she would understand when she was older." "You never told her I was a monster." "No." Serafina's voice was tired. "I never told her you were a monster. Whatever you did to me, you were still her father, and she deserved to grow up without hating a man she might someday meet." Thatcher felt tears burning behind his eyes. He could not remember the last time he had cried. Probably not since childhood. Probably not since he learned that tears were weaknesses his father would exploit. But here, in this garden, with the daughter he had never known and the woman he had never stopped loving, the tears came anyway. "I am so sorry." The words broke on his lips. "I know that is not enough. I know sorry cannot give you back the years I stole from both of you. But I need you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life, that I have regretted it every single day. That I would give every dollar, every company, every piece of this empire to go back and make a different choice." Pretty words. Serafina said it again, but this time there was less bitterness in her tone, more exhaustion. "They are not just words. I will prove it, however long it takes, whatever it costs. I will prove that I am not the man who ran away. And if I do not want you to prove it, if I want you to walk away right now and never come back, Thatcher met her eyes. Then I will respect that. It will destroy me, but I will respect it, because you have earned the right to make that choice. I have not earned the right to demand anything. Serafina stared at him for a long, long moment, searching, weighing, deciding, and before she could speak, a small voice interrupted them. Mommy? Mr. Thatcher? Are you still talking about grown-up things? Because the music is really good and I want to dance, but I do not have anyone to dance with. Winslow had appeared beside them, her flower petal project abandoned. Her small face was hopeful and completely unaware of the monumental conversation happening above her head. Serafina looked at her daughter. Then at Thatcher. Then at her daughter again. Something passed across her face. A decision made. A door cautiously, tentatively opened. Winslow, baby. How would you feel if Mr. Thatcher danced with you? The little girl's face exploded with joy. Really? You would dance with me, Mr. Thatcher? Thatcher's heart felt like it might burst. I would be honored, Miss Winslow. Winslow grabbed his hand and started pulling him toward the dance floor with the single-minded determination of a 5-year-old who had just gotten exactly what she wanted. Come on, come on. The music might stop and then we will miss it. Thatcher looked back at Serafina. She was watching them with tears streaming down her face, but she was also smiling, just barely, just enough. Go, she mouthed. Dance with your daughter. Your daughter. The words rewrote everything. The dance floor was crowded with couples swaying to a slow jazz number. Thatcher felt absurdly out of place, a billionaire in a bespoke suit being dragged by a 5-year-old in a grass-stained dress. He had never danced with a child before. He did not know the protocol. Did he hold her hands, lift her up, follow her lead? Winslow solved the problem by raising her arms imperiously. You have to pick me up so we are the same tall. Same tall. Right. Thatcher lifted her carefully, settling her against his hip like he had seen parents do 1,000 times. She was lighter than he expected, warmer. She smelled like grass and frosting and something indefinably childlike. Okay, she said seriously. Now you sway. Back and forth. Like a tree in the wind. Like a tree in the wind. Got it. They swayed. Around them, other couples watched with amusement and warmth. Thatcher caught Meridian's eye across the room. His old friend looked utterly confused but delighted. You are pretty good at this, Winslow informed him. Thank you. I have an excellent teacher. I know. She giggled. Mommy says I am bossy. But I think I am just good at knowing things. That sounds like wisdom to me. What is wisdom? It is when you know important things that other people have not figured out yet. Winslow considered this. Then I am very wise, because I know something important right now. What is that? I know that you are sad. And I know that Mommy is sad. And I think maybe you are sad about the same thing. Thatcher's throat tightened. What makes you think that? Because you both look at each other like you are remembering something. Like there is a story I do not know yet. You really are wise. Mr. Thatcher? Yes, Winslow. Can I tell you a secret? Of course. She leaned in close, her small voice dropping to a whisper. Sometimes I pretend I have a daddy. I make him up in my head. And he looks different every time because I do not know what he looks like for real. But in my pretend, he always dances with me. Just like this. Thatcher felt tears sliding down his face. He could not stop them, could not even try. Winslow, he said carefully, trying to keep his voice steady. Would you like to know a secret too? Yes, please. He took a deep breath. The biggest breath of his life. I am your daddy. The words hung in the air between them. Winslow pulled back, her hazel eyes wide with shock. For real? For real. I am so sorry I was not here before. I made a very big mistake a long time ago, and I have been trying to find my way back ever since. Winslow's face went through a dozen expressions in 5 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, hope, fear, and finally, something that looked like cautious joy. Mommy said maybe I would meet you someday. She was right. Are you going to stay now? If you and your mommy will let me, I am never leaving again. Winslow stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that shattered every wall Thatcher had ever built around his heart. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and squeezed with all her might. "I knew you would come," she whispered against his shoulder. "I wished for you every birthday. Every time I saw a shooting star, I wished and wished and wished. And I am here. I am finally here." They swayed together, father and daughter, while the jazz band played and the world continued turning and everything changed. Across the room, Serafina watched with tears streaming freely down her face. Thatcher met her eyes over their daughter's head. "Thank you," he mouthed. She nodded. Once. Small. But enough. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. They had mountains to climb and oceans to cross before they reached anything resembling forgiveness. But it was a beginning. And sometimes that is all second chances are. Beginnings that we do not deserve but are offered anyway. Grace that we have not earned but desperately need. Thatcher held his daughter and let himself believe, for the first time in 5 years, that maybe he could become the man he should have been all along. Now I want to pause and ask you something personal. Have you ever been given a second chance you did not deserve? Have you ever been on the other side, deciding whether to give someone grace when they had hurt you deeply? I genuinely want to know. Drop your story in the comments. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is share our experiences with others who understand. And if you are still watching, if you have made it this far, then you are not just a viewer. You are part of this community. You are someone who believes in the power of stories to change hearts and minds. Please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Not for me, but for yourself. Because you deserve to be surrounded by stories that remind you of what matters most. Now, let us see how this ends. 6 months later. The apartment was small but perfect. Serafina's law books still dominated the shelves, but now they shared space with children's picture books and a truly alarming collection of stuffed animals that Winslow had named individually. Thatcher sat on the couch, his daughter curled against his side, reading aloud from a book about a bear who could not find his hat. "Daddy, you are doing the bear voice wrong," Winslow interrupted. "He sounds grumpy, not confused." "How does confused sound?" "More like this." She demonstrated a voice that was half whine, half wonder. "Ah, I see. Let me try again." He reread the passage with the approved voice while Serafina watched from the kitchen doorway. She was smiling in a way that still made Thatcher's heart stutter every time he saw it. The past 6 months had been the hardest and most rewarding of his life. He had stepped down from daily operations at Keen Industries, delegating to a team he finally trusted. He had started therapy, confronting decades of emotional avoidance and the damage his father had inflicted. He had shown up, every day, every moment Serafina would allow. It had not been easy. There had been fights, tears. Moments when Serafina's anger resurfaced and Thatcher had to simply absorb it, knowing he deserved every harsh word. Moments when the weight of lost years threatened to crush them both. But there had also been grace. Winslow calling him daddy for the first time and meaning it. Serafina letting him hold her hand during a difficult day. Small moments of trust that accumulated like drops of water, slowly filling the vast emptiness he had created. "She is asleep." Serafina's voice was soft as she approached. Thatcher looked down. Sure enough, Winslow's eyes had closed, her breathing deep and even against his side. "I should carry her to bed. Let me." He lifted his daughter carefully, marveling again at how light she was, how precious, how unbelievable it was that she existed at all. Her room was a riot of pink and purple, decorated with art projects and photographs and the accumulated treasures of childhood. Thatcher laid her gently in her bed and pulled the covers up to her chin. "Good night, Winslow," he whispered. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky." It was what Serafina said every night, what Winslow asked for specifically. Being included in their ritual felt like the greatest honor of his life. He kissed his daughter's forehead and crept out of the room, leaving the door cracked exactly how she liked it. Serafina was waiting in the hallway, her expression thoughtful. "You are good with her." "I am trying." "You are succeeding." They stood in the narrow hallway, close enough to touch but not quite touching. The space between them was smaller than it had been 6 months ago, but it still existed. A gap that needed to be bridged, one careful step at a time. "Sarah." "Yes? I know I have said it before. I know words cannot fix what I broke. But I need you to know that every day I wake up grateful. Grateful that you gave me a chance I did not deserve. Grateful that you let me know our daughter. Grateful that you did not give up on the possibility that I could change." Serafina's eyes glistened. "I am still scared. I am still waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to get a call from Tokyo or London or wherever and disappear again. I know. And I cannot promise to never fail you again, because I am human and humans make mistakes. But I can promise that I will never stop trying, that I will never stop choosing you and Winslow over everything else, that I will spend the rest of my life earning the trust I shattered." Serafina reached out and touched his face. Her hand was warm and gentle and felt like coming home. "I want to believe you. Then let me prove it. Let me keep proving it, every day, for as long as it takes." She stepped closer, closing the gap that had separated them for 5 long years. Her arms wrapped around him. Her head rested against his chest. "I missed you," she whispered. "Even when I hated you. I missed you every single day. I missed you too. I am so sorry it took me this long to find my way back." They stood together in the hallway of the small apartment, 2 imperfect people holding on to each other and the fragile, beautiful thing they were rebuilding. 1 year later, the wedding was small, intimate, held in the garden of a coffee shop called the Midnight Owl, where a nervous young man had once worked up the courage to talk to the woman who would change his life. Winslow served as flower girl, scattering petals with the intensity of someone diffusing a bomb. She wore a white dress without grass stains, and her hair had stayed in its braids, mostly because Thatcher had watched 17 YouTube tutorials to learn how to do them properly. Serafina walked toward him through the garden, more beautiful than she had been on any magazine cover, any red carpet, any boardroom where his presence once commanded attention. She was radiant, and she was choosing him. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, 6-year-old Winslow stood up very seriously. "I object to there being no cake yet." The laughter that followed was warm and real and full of the kind of joy Thatcher had forgotten existed. Later, during their first dance as husband and wife, Serafina leaned close to his ear. "You know, I never thought we would get here. Neither did I. What changed? I realized that success is not measured in dollars or deals or magazine covers. It is measured in the people who love you, in the moments that take your breath away, in the courage to keep showing up even when you do not deserve to be forgiven. That is very wise, Mr. Keene. I learned it from a very wise 5-year-old. A small hand tugged at his jacket. Thatcher looked down to find his daughter gazing up at him with those eyes, his eyes full of love and mischief. "Daddy, it is my turn to dance now." He swept her into his arms, one hand still holding Serafina's, the 3 of them swaying together in the fairy-lit garden where everything had once fallen apart and was now being rebuilt. "I love you both," Thatcher said, the words coming easily now. "More than any empire, more than any success, you are my everything." "We know," Winslow said matter-of-factly. "You tell us every day, and I am never going to stop. And this is where our story ends. But before you go, I want you to understand what this story is really about. It is not about a billionaire finding his daughter. It is not about a romance rekindled after years apart. It is not even about forgiveness, though that is certainly part of it. This story is about courage. The courage to admit when we have been wrong. The courage to show up even when we do not deserve grace. The courage to choose love over fear, presence over profit, people over empire. Thatcher Keene spent years building a kingdom of glass and ambition. He thought success would fill the emptiness inside him. He was wrong. The only thing that fills us is connection, vulnerability, the willingness to be seen in all our imperfection by people who love us anyway. So here is my question for you. What are you building your life around? What empire are you constructing at the expense of what really matters? Who have you walked away from because choosing them felt too scary? It is never too late to go back. It is never too late to say the words you should have said years ago. It is never too late to become the person you were always meant to be. But you have to start. You have to take that first terrifying step. You have to choose courage over comfort, love over fear, connection over isolation. Because at the end of our lives, no one remembers the deals we closed or the money we made. They remember how we made them feel. They remember whether we showed up. They remember the love we gave and the grace we offered. That is the only legacy that matters. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something. Not for me, but for yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is running from love. Someone who is hiding behind success. Someone who has forgotten that they deserve a second chance. Because stories like this have the power to change lives, but only if we share them. Subscribe to Cedar Drama if you have not already. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might be exactly what you need to hear. And leave a comment telling me what this story meant to you. I read every single one, and they genuinely inspire the stories I tell. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for being the kind of person who believes in the power of storytelling. Thank you for being part of this community. Until next time, remember, the greatest treasure in your life is not waiting to be found. It is waiting to be chosen. Choose love. Choose courage. Choose the people who matter. Everything else is just noise. This has been Cedar Drama. I will see you in the next story.